Yeah, we're here to talk about data-driven creativity, which I think is, as we've sort of heard a little bit this morning, a sort of big area for brands to explore. The Incite model of combining their marketing and big data position in one role was one sort of thing that stood out to me as an indicator of where this is going. Just by way of a brief introduction, I'm Steve Whiteside. I'm from Walk. We are a marketing intelligence provider based in London with offices in New York and Singapore. And we have an excellent panel here to talk to you for the next 60 minutes or so about what I think will be a fascinating topic over the next few years. Just by way of housekeeping, we'll ask questions towards the end, but obviously get your thinking hats on. If there's anything pressing that comes up while we're talking or any subjects you don't think we address, then we'd love to have your questions a bit later on.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Scaglione, and there is a Ferrari Scaglietti, so good luck. I work for Owner IQ. I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategic Channel Development, previously the CMO of Sharp Electronics. So I think I can bring maybe two sides of the story, working for a large corporate brand and now a small digital advertising startup. And I'd like to discuss how the digital advertising startup side utilizes data to make more important and more strategic and more powerful marketing decisions.
Well, I guess that sort of leads me to Bob in terms of your role at the moment. You're working with a lot of retailers, and I guess that's an area where they have a lot of customer data. There's room for sort of digitization to a point. I mean, how are you finding retailers coping with this sort of data creativity trend at the moment?
They tend to not want to share the data, but they make the insights available that they find from the data. So they'll give you information regarding what they found, but they don't want you to actually control their data. What we found at Owner IQ, though, which is nice, is that we're getting retailers and manufacturers to work together on campaigns that are co-branded. So as a retailer, you can advertise only to people who have been to a manufacturer's specific product page, which we think is really powerful, because if you're running a campaign that weekend as a retailer, it would be great leading up to that campaign to advertise as people are cruising around the web, only the people who have been to a very specific page, and serve them up a co-branded ad that says, come in this weekend, we'll give you X percentage off. And it pushes consumers right down to the bottom of the funnel. Many times they're looking for up to 60 days doing research on the manufacturer side, on the retailer side, looking at pricing, and they're waiting for something to trigger them to actually make a purchase decision, and many times an offer when they're in a relaxed state, maybe on ESPN.com checking their fantasy football scores. That offer pops up and says, wow, the thing I've been looking for is on sale this weekend. It's available at the store, which, by the way, can also be tagged by the geography as well. So it's within my geographic circle. I'm familiar with that store. I'm comfortable with that store. I'd like that product. Now it's on sale. Why not buy now? So it's giving retailers, to dovetail off your other question, it's letting them take more calculated risks. They're still taking risks, but now they're speaking to people who have already raised their hand and said, I'm interested in this product. So it gives them an opportunity to be more creative and very targeted, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that sort of leads into the next question I wanted to ask in terms of, obviously, Bob and David are both sort of new partners for brands in that sense, but one of the more sort of long-standing partnerships is with advertising agencies. And in this sort of new world, it's not enough to sort of create a campaign and then 6 months later assess the results and have another look at it. So sort of how do you think the client-agency relationship is sort of bulwark of the marketing and advertising world? It's obviously changing. Things are going to need to change. How do you think that's going to have to change in order to make the most of this sort of data-driven creativity? Bobby, you obviously must have worked with a lot of agencies, presumably good and bad, when you were at Sharp. Do you anticipate there might be a bit of resistance to change, or do you think agencies are generally quite open to sort of modifying and working in new patterns?
Yeah, it's right in our wheelhouse now, because we're up against many agencies that are resistant to change, and there are some great agencies who understand that this is the future and they need to embrace it, and it's changing, and they're going to benefit from it by getting more advertising. I think it really goes down to how they're being measured. So if the agency is being measured on traditional marketing factors, reach, frequency, click-through rate, impressions, they're going to find a lot of easier things to do with your money and still deliver your number. And it's just a matter of time and money, really. I can run a TV commercial and get you the impressions that you want and deliver those impressions to a CMO. But they're not responsible for things like market share and revenue and profit. and many times the CMO is. So I think it would be great if they would figure out a new way of measuring and compensating agencies based on the same metrics that the brand is using. So if they're being measured on how many sales I'm going to get from an ad or what my market share, how it's going to increase, then they're going to look for more creative ways to talk more directly and specifically to consumers that have identified an interest in a product rather than widely advertising. And there's a couple of our retail partners whose agencies now are being compensated based on top-line revenue and bottom-line profitability rather than just impressions. And I think that's a great model because now your agency is a partner of yours and making the right decisions with your money based on the things that are important to you, not based on bottom of the funnel.
Right. Yeah, and then Bob, again, from your sort of slightly poacher turned gamekeeper sort of perspective, have you found either on the sort of brand side or on the sort of platform side you're on at the moment, are there sort of tools and services in place that sort of can help you take that data, those data sets you've got, which as we know are sprawling and massive, and actually find a way to tangibly make them meaningful?
Sure. So at OwnerIQ, we sit on top of this kind of treasure trove of data that identifies where people go, what brands they interact with along the path to purchase, right? So that tells us so much information about who they are, what they do, what they like, what they don't like. And even to the point where you can tell a particular brand, before they purchase your product, they went to these of your competitors, or before they went to this retailer, they went to these other retailers in order to do some research. So the data is there. The idea then is that take that data and turn it into actionable strategy. But there's so much information available for retailers and manufacturers alike today to make really good decisions on how they want to talk and where they want to talk to their customers to drive conversion. And what's nice about digital, as we all know, it's very easy to test and very quick to change. So as they make these decisions and they make kind of the hypothesis that something's going to happen if they advertise in a particular spot, they can quickly change that or ramp it up if it's doing well.
Right. And Bob, OwnerIQ, do you have a sort of entry point? Do you have a sort of initial recommendation you would make to a client in terms of how to get started if they want to start following this sort of approach?
Sure. And again, we try to speak not only to agencies but also to brands and to the people who are making decisions based on what's going to drive revenue at those brands. So a great example is at a retailer, it's usually the merchant. It's the person who is deciding what's going to be advertised at what price and has the relationship with the manufacturer or sometimes they call vendor, has the connection to that vendor, deciding what products will be served up and what maybe support they're going to get from that vendor to run advertising, the co-op dollars they call. So the merchants get it right away. If we explain that this is going to be more efficient and effective, you're only speaking to people who have identified a need or an interest in a specific product, they get it right away. They tend to pull in the manufacturer. The manufacturers, like I was at Sharp, were slower to react to that because the first thing they hear is, oh, people are going to be looking at our data. And then that, as a large company, that request initially goes to legal and to IT. And IT says, I don't want anybody to have my data. And legal says, why would you want to give anybody your data? And so it shuts down. But if the merchant comes to the manufacturer and says, I want you to do this, figure it out, and that's your biggest customer, they're going to listen.
Well, I'd like to say thank you very much to our panelists and to you for coming along. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.